Hi, it's Jayne. I hope you're having a really good week, one that's filled with love and kindness for yourself. So, this week, I want to talk about self love, the importance of it, and how you can actually learn to love yourself a little bit more every single day. So, this journey started for me about 4 years ago. I had a pretty traumatic childhood, and over the many years, I learned to hate myself, actually. And I felt I was not worthy of being loved by anybody else or by me. And so through those years, I spoke to myself so poorly. I would beat myself up emotionally and mentally. And I always felt like I was not good enough for anybody else and definitely not for me. So about 4 years ago, there was a moment of reckoning for me. It was almost the end of the year, time for New Year's resolutions. And I decided that the following year, I was going to fall hopelessly in love with myself. I stepped away from wanting to find a partner and loving somebody else and feeling loved in return. But that year, I told myself, no, I was going to focus on loving me for who I am. And I'm not a big believer in New Year's resolutions. I don't particularly make any resolutions. But that year, that was the one that just spoke to me over and over again. So I decided to stick with it. And it's been 4 years on that journey. I still have, ways to go, but I can confidently tell you today that yes, I love myself. If you were to ask me 4 years ago, or even 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago, how I felt about myself, my answer would have been, I don't love myself at all, or I'm 20% in love with myself, or maybe 50%. But today it's 80%. And guess what? 80 is better than 50, than 20, than zero, than any other number. And if I'm at 80%, I know I will get to 100% if I keep at it. So the beauty of self-love is that is what allows you to be who you are and be okay with that. Self-love helps you prioritize yourself and your needs. It helps you take care of yourself. If you love yourself enough, you'll think about what you're eating, how you're eating, how you can move, how you can be healthy on the outside and inside. Self-love is the ultimate expression of being at peace and for going with the flow. So that's why loving myself was so important to me, because I wanted to live a wholesome and authentic life. And in this journey, I discovered some ways that helped me get to that from 0% to 80%. So that is what I want to share with you today. The steps that I've taken. I hope they resonate with you. I hope you have some of your own. If you do, please share. I'd love to know. But take what you will, as long as you learn to love yourself, because that is the ultimate purpose in life. When you love yourself, you turn into the human being that you were meant to be, that you are meant to be. And you show up fully for yourself and for everybody else in this world. So the first step that I took was I set the intention, right? As I shared with you earlier, a few years ago, I made that resolution. So it's for you, when the calling feels right, to set that intention. Say it out to the universe, share it with a friend, a loved one. Put a poster up on your wall that you see every single day that says, yes, I want to love myself. Yes, I will love myself. Yes, I do love myself. You have to put it out there, because that's a way for you to hold yourself accountable. if you don't share it, if you don't write it down, if you don't talk about it, whether it's to yourself or to someone you love, it will never happen. But when you start to put it out there, when you start to talk about it, it becomes a priority. And that's when you've set that intention. So once you decide that's what you want, then you start to work on it. The next thing I did after I set my intention was I asked myself some pretty deep questions. Some of them were, who am I? What do I want? Where do I want to be? And that meant taking a much bigger picture at my life. So I wasn't thinking about today or tomorrow, this month or this year. It was more about, where do I want to be 5 years from now? What do I want from my life? When I'm 80 and maybe almost ready to say goodbye to this world, what will I have wanted in my life? So I really had to tap into my values, and I had to create this vision for myself. I didn't instantly have clear answers to these questions, but the more I thought, the more I started to understand myself and what I wanted out of me as a person and out of this life. So learn more about yourself, because when you know yourself fully, that's when you can love yourself and love all parts of yourself, not just the good ones, or not just the ones that appear good to you. The next step that I took in my journey was to forgive myself. So I had a lot of baggage, a lot of trauma, just many failed relationships. And throughout all of this, the one thing that I did consistently was blame myself. I never held the other person accountable, or I never chalked it up to circumstances or life or what have you. Everything was my fault. I was either too stupid for anything better, or I wasn't good enough, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that. So I had to really pause and do some inner work. Of course, I turned to therapy, which was life-changing. And through therapy and working on myself, I eventually forgave myself. Where today, when I think about my past, I think about what's happened, I don't just solely blame myself. I try to just understand the situation and I accept it for what it was. When I went through my divorce, I experienced immense guilt, and the self-loathing reached an all-time high. So to come out of that, it took some time. I really had to work on forgiving myself, through which I was able to love myself. So think about those instances in your life. Even today, when something happens, how do you talk to yourself? Do you put all the blame on you? Do you feel like you are the only person who can control every situation? What is it? What is your thought process? Kind of stop and think about that. And then think about how you talk to yourself. Because if you don't forgive yourself, you'll never fully love yourself for who you are. Besides forgiving myself, I also started to take care of myself. I started this from the outside in because that was easier for me. So what I mean by that is, it was much easier for me to go work out 4 times a week than, really start to dig deep 4 times a week, right? I had the physical stamina to go do those workouts, but I didn't always have the emotional or mental stamina to sit with myself and to lean into my feelings. So I started with taking care of my body. I paid attention to what I ate, how I ate. I paid attention to how much I slept, how much sleep I needed. And I started to give my body what it needed, what it wanted. I limited sugar, I limited alcohol, whatever it was that felt right for my body. And then I started to nourish my soul. When I started to nourish my body, it became easier to nourish the deeper parts of myself. So I started from the outside in. So pay attention to what your body needs. What is it asking of you? Does it need a good cry? Does it need a hug? Does it need more water? Do you need to hydrate more? Do you need to move more? Do you need more sleep? What is it that your body needs? The more you start to provide for your body, the more you're actually providing for your soul. So learn to take care of yourself. The next thing I did is I started to live a more aligned life. So what I mean by that is, earlier when I said there are certain questions that you need to answer, such as who are you, what do you want, where you want to be. Once you have that vision, then start figuring out how you want to make that vision a reality. Because the more you work towards your goals and what truly makes you happy, the more you love yourself. So I figured out what my values were, what my goals were, and then I started to act accordingly. So in my case, that meant severing ties with people who were too toxic for me emotionally and mentally. Now, it wasn't easy to do, but I had to set certain boundaries. And saying no became easier with time. But that was one of the things I had to do. That meant living an aligned life to me. It also meant putting myself first. So for my mental health, I know that even a 30-minute workout can be life-changing. When I don't move my body, my depression can get worse. So in order to manage my depression, one of the things that I need to do is move. And that could be anything. Sometimes it's just a walk, sometimes it's strength training. So whatever feels right to my body. But movement is very important for me, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So I started identifying what was helping me live an aligned life. Once I thought about that, I put it into action, and then I made it a habit. So to give you another example, I discovered meditation. I know, late to the game, but I discovered it a few years ago. And the more I did it, the more I felt in tune with myself. So that became an act of self-compassion, of self-love for me, which eventually turned into a habit. Today when I wake up, the first thing I do is I meditate because of how important it is for me. And it's an extension of my self-love. So just to recap, as you're trying to fall in love with yourself, which is possible, it may take months, it may take years, but it is possible. One of the first things you want to do is say that desire out loud. Set that intention that what you want is to love yourself wholly, fully, and unconditionally. Once you set the intention, ask yourself some important questions. Really get to know who you are and what you want. And then work on forgiving yourself. In order for growth to happen, you have to nurture yourself and you have to love yourself. As you work on forgiving yourself, start taking care of yourself, whatever that means to you, whether that's more sleep, more water, better food, no alcohol, limited sugar. I don't know, whatever comes to you, you'll know what the answer is. Start taking care of yourself. Take care of the outside and then start working on the inside. As you're taking care of yourself, start living an aligned life. Really sit down and figure out how can your actions and habits align with your thoughts and what you desire of yourself and your life. When you live that full life, when you have that full circle, you're going to love yourself and you're going to experience fulfillment. So I hope some of this resonated with you. If you enjoyed the content or got something out of it, please like, subscribe, and share. If you want to learn about how I can help you and what I do for you and my clients, check out my website. That's www.imperfectbodies.com, one word. And most importantly, I hope you have a week filled with love and compassion for yourself. Give yourself a big hug and a big kiss because you're the best thing to have happened to you. Take care.